History of Mary Tudor of England. Why did she become Bloody Mary?
Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
It is said that if you chant Bloody Mary in front of the mirror 3 times at night, you'd see a horrifying figure in the mirror. Have you ever tried this? Let us know your experience in the comments. Today we will share how Mary Tudor became Bloody Mary. In 1516, on February 18, King Henry VIII of England and his wife Catherine of Aragon were blessed with a girl child. They named her Mary I of England, or Mary Tudor. Mary was the only surviving child of the couple. Catherine had around 3 miscarriages before Mary was born. King Henry was also wanting a boy, as he wanted his successor, but Catherine failed to give him one. Mary's early childhood was quite happening, as her both parents loved her a lot, and she was pampered by everyone in the palace. Catherine thought, as there was no son to be the successor, Mary would get the throne someday, so she trained Mary to be the future queen. As Mary was a girl, King Henry used her for his political tactics as well. He used to offer Mary's hand to princes of other kingdoms to make alliances. Henry's disappointment with Mary was getting cloudless day by day. This was the first point that targeted Mary's emotions. When Mary was 11, King Henry decided that he would divorce her mother Catherine. The process of divorce was very complicated, because the church was not ready to void the marriage of king and queen. So King Henry made his own church, and there he took a divorce from Catherine. After the divorce, he separated Mary from her mother. As we said, King Henry made his own church in England. They followed the Protestant beliefs in the Church of England. Mary and her mother had a firm hold on Catholic beliefs, but because of Henry, Mary lost her Catholic church as well. Mary was made to stay in the palace, and Catherine was exiled. During this time, Mary started facing a lot of discomfort with her body. As she was getting into puberty, she faced severe menstrual problems because she developed endometriosis, which is called the dysmenorrhea. Her health was getting worse, and her relations with parents were turning into hell. Henry fell in love with a lady called Anne Boleyn, due to which he took divorce from Catherine. So, he married Anne Boleyn, and now, Anne was the Queen of England. Mary hated her, because Anne was the reason for the misery happening in her life. Soon, Anne was pregnant, and Henry hoped for a boy to be born, but to his disappointment, Anne gave birth to a girl, who they named Elizabeth I. We have already made a video on Elizabeth I, do watch it to know the life of Elizabeth. Mary was made to look after little Elizabeth. It was obvious for Mary to be jealous of her, as the love and affection she used to get were now given to Elizabeth. Gradually, Mary's existence was declining in England. In the year 1536, Anne Boleyn was headed to death by King Henry. The reason for this is said that Anne possessed Henry to marry her. Mary was quite satisfied with this news, as she always hated Anne. In the same year, Mary's mother Catherine fell seriously unwell. Mary wanted to meet her, but Henry had banned Mary from meeting her mother, so Mary couldn't go. Catherine passed away, and the death of her mother took Mary into trauma. She had no one to mourn with her, she had to deal with the situation all alone. This made Mary a rebellious teenager. Soon, Henry exiled Mary and Elizabeth from the kingdom, after which he married Jane Seymour. Jane was a kind lady, she insisted on bringing Mary and Elizabeth back to the kingdom. Henry loved Jane a lot, so he agreed. Elizabeth was brought back, but for Mary to come back, she had to sign a document, which stated that the marriage of her mother Catherine and King Henry was an illegal marriage. At first, Mary completely refused to sign, but eventually, she signed the document. And now, Mary was also called to court. Later on, Jane got pregnant. She passed away while delivering the child. She gave birth to a boy, who was named Edward VI. Now that Henry had his successor, he declared Mary and Elizabeth illegitimate. Later in 1539, King Henry got unwillingly married to Anne of Cleves. Henry didn't like her at all, so just within a year, he voided his marriage with Anne of Cleves. In 1540, Henry married Catherine Howard, but in 2 years, he killed Catherine because he doubted her. At last, he married Catherine Parr. She brought the whole family quite close. She asked Henry to accept Mary and Elizabeth. Henry agreed, and declared Mary and Elizabeth legitimate. So now, Mary could claim the throne after Edward, and after Mary, Elizabeth would be the successor. In 1547, Henry passed away, and the throne was given to 9-year-old Edward. Soon, after he got the throne, he felt seriously ill, and eventually, he passed away. But before he passed away, he made his cousin Lady Jane Grey his successor. But according to Henry's will, Mary was supposed to get the throne after Edward. So, Mary deposed Lady Jane Grey, and took the throne. At the age of 37, Mary became the Queen of England and Ireland. She had the support of her kingdom. Despite that, Mary was unhappy, because she was a single childless lady. She decided to get married to a super Catholic king of Spain, King Philip II. Philip II became the king, but the ruling was completely under Mary's control. She got married because she wanted kids, but she never got one. After a year or so, Mary said she was pregnant, as she developed all the symptoms of pregnancy. The royal doctors examined her, and confirmed the news. Even though her belly was growing, there was no child. All the symptoms, and growing belly was because a cyst was growing inside her uterus. Doctors had given a date of delivery to Mary, but no baby was born. After this, people started rumoring about Mary. Mary was a strong believer in Catholicism. She thought God is cursing her because she is failing to convert Protestants into Catholics. She tried converting Protestants into Catholics. The ones who refused were headed to brutal deaths. More than 800 citizens were exiled from the kingdom during her reign. Many were burned on open streets because of not obeying the Queen. Later in the year 1558, Mary passed away due to uterine cancer. After her, Elizabeth got to the throne. This is how Mary gained the title, Bloody Mary, as she showed such brutal behavior towards her subjects. Mary was as normal as any other girl, but the traumatizing situations of her life made her so cruel. In the end, she didn't even realize that she was becoming the same as her father, whom she hated. So this was it about Bloody Mary. We'll soon come back with another tale, life journey, or real incident. So stay tuned.